the first vegan all across India who has scaled to Mount Everest not once, but twice. And even more important and even more exciting, having the aspiration of doing it even third time. We'll talk about that in the session itself. This is a very, very rare feat, guys, which very few people have accomplished all around the world. So this is really, really great. And we will get to know a lot about these things, about his journey, the inspiring journey that he has had over the last couple of years in this session. And it has not only motivated us, it has motivated millions of people all across the globe. Let me quickly introduce you to our today's guest. If I tell you a little bit of introduction about Kuntal, his life is all about meant to be in the mountains. And very funny though, but he's told us, that he's got six-pack abs, and the six-pack abs, the credit he gives it to his 2-year-old daughter, which keeps him on his toes all the time. So this conversation is going to be very, very exciting. So all I want to say right now is just stick around to the session till the end, because you and I will have a lot of learnings from Kuntal, whether it is about mountaineering, the training for it, health and fitness, nutrition, and even veganism. So there is a lot for us. So let's stick around till the end of the session. And now, without any further delay, help me welcoming our today's guest, a vegan mountaineer, a humanitarian, an aspiring visionary, and a nutrition and fitness coach, Kuntal Joisher. Hey Kuntal, welcome to Cult Fit.
Hey Naveen, thank you for such a kind introduction. Really appreciate that. And I am super excited to be here. And it's such a kind of a change for me to be within the fitness community, to be within people who are so passionate about their nutrition, passionate about their health. And most of the times I'm giving talks to corporates, but this is such a good change. I'm really, really excited to be sharing my journey with people who potentially would empathize with me, who would identify with me, who would identify with the journey I've gone on, and look forward to sharing my journey with all you amazing folks out here. And yeah, let's get started.
That is so amazing. In fact, I'm also super excited, and I so told you, right, that I'm really honored to be talking to you right now. So, Kuntal, we will go ahead and talk to you about a lot of things. And the first thing that I had in mind, we'll definitely go to the why. How did you get into this entire thing of going to Mount Everest? But we are curious to know you have scaled to Mount Everest twice.
Right.
How does what it feels like being on the top of it? You are on the highest point. What does it feel like when you reach there?
So of course I got to the top twice, and I'm going to share the experience from the first time because first time is always the first time. And I remember I was standing about 10 meters away from the summit of Everest. This is 29,000 feet, May 19th, 2016, at about 9:20 in the morning. It was so cold, probably about minus 40 degrees Celsius. I was absolutely knackered. I was, in some sense miserable, uh, cold, exhausted beyond any imagination. Even the tears that I was getting in my eyes, the moment they would come out of my eye, they would freeze just on my cheeks. And it was a difficult condition, but I had achieved the biggest dream of my life. This is a dream I had set out for many years ago, and finally standing on the top. I would say, since you asked me how was I feeling, there were, of course, two emotions that I was going through. The first emotion being, thank God Everest is out of my life. And this may feel very, very, like you folks might be thinking, what is this guy talking about? But look, I had gone through a journey of almost 7 years with two failures of climbing Everest, where I'd seen a near-death experience, where I'd seen 17 Sherpa guides die. I'd seen an earthquake. I'd seen a massive avalanche, and it almost felt as if I'm never going to get to the top of Everest, given how things are going on with me. And so the moment I saw the top, and I knew I'm going to get back down very much fine because I was super strong in that moment where I was feeling tired, but I knew I was going to get back down. But so that was like, wow, done. Check mark. Khatam mere life se. I can, just go down, have like, move on in life. But then second feeling, the moment that feeling that kind of went over, it was a feeling of absolute exhilaration, joy, and I think I was feeling on top of the world. I was literally on top of the world, but I was also feeling on top of the world. And then I kind of walked the last 10 steps, and I was crying and I was crying and I was crying because I promised myself I would not cry on top of Everest, but that is exactly what I ended up doing. Finally reaching and, like standing next to my Sherpa guide. And I think the feeling that I had was a feeling of immense gratitude towards the mountain that it allowed me to get to the top, gratitude towards my family, especially my wife and my mother, who I truly believe are the two of the strongest women I know. Because without their support and love, I would have never made it to the top of Everest. And just gratitude for every person who had contributed to my journey. And so it was just amazing. And like this view that you see in the background is the view also that I saw from the very top of Mount Everest. It was such a clear day. Actually, I'm just going to move like this. And this mountain that you see here is Kanchenjunga. It's like literally on the border of India and Nepal. So all the way from top of the world, I could see all the way into India. It was such a spectacular view, like a magical view. I think those 20 minutes that I spent on the top of Mount Everest the first time, I could do anything to get back those 20 minutes of my life. And probably that is why I climbed Mount Everest again, to feel like that again. But it was absolute. I can't say in words what I felt on top of the world. When you find your Everest and when you reach the top of your Everest, I think that's when you probably will feel the same way I felt on top of Everest. So it was, yes, I climbed the Everest and I climbed that mountain, but I think it was more about achieving that impossible dream and finishing it finally. So yeah, sorry, I just went on and on.
No, 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 Kuntal. I mean, this really. I mean, I was getting actually goosebumps when you're talking about you were there for 20 minutes and the kind of emotions that you were going through can completely feel it even when you're talking about it. So I'm sure you really had a great time at that time, and this is one of the rarest thing that not many people have done. So really great thing. So, Kuntal, I would like to, go ahead to my second question. Now, I have read a lot about you, and all I got to know is that you were in an IT industry, right? You were a software engineer, like you would definitely hold the skill even today. You are a software engineer. So, how did it all come? Like, how did reaching Everest become your dream? Like, I also got to know that you were 110 kg at that time when you were in corporate, and it is, I mean, it looks very far-fetched. Somebody who has 110 kg also working in a corporate, and then we're talking about Everest. So how all of these pieces came together.
So I was this typical IT guy, happy-go-lucky guy living next door, 110 kgs. So in some sense, very unhealthy, near obese in some sense. And I also come from a Gujarati family. So I don't know of a single person in my entire family, forget my family, in my entire community that would even climb a hill. Most of them would take a lift to just climb one floor. So climbing Everest was never part of my plan, never part of anything around my life. Uh, and so this is something that completely happened to me by chance. This was back in February of 2009, where my wife and I decided that we wanted to take a vacation. And so we thought, where should we take a vacation? And so we were like making down a list of things. And my wife said, I have never seen snow in my life. And I was like, yeah, the last time I saw snow was in 1987 when I went to a trip to Himachal Pradesh. So I'm like, I have never seen snow. She has never seen snow. Maybe we need to see snow. So we decided we'll go to Shimla in the winters. So that's February, like January, February. So we went to Shimla. And for the first 6 days, we did not see any snow. Like the heater in our room was not working. There was no hot water. We were not seeing snow. We were these typical tourists who were super miserable. लाइक क्या हो गया, क्या ट्रिप पे आ गए हम लोग यार, क्यों आए हम लोग यहाँ. And that's kind of the stuff that was happening to us. And then last day we were roaming through the Shimla market and this guy says, I will show you snow. So we're like, let's just go. So he took us to this place called Narkanda, which is about 75 kilometers away from Shimla on the old Hindustan Tibet highway. And I remember reaching Narkanda and standing near this small, like a small dhaba. And we were surrounded 360 degrees by the amazing Himalayan panorama. And I was like, wow, this is spectacular. But then I like told my taxi driver, but you had promised us that you are going to make us touch snow. I can see snow anywhere. I can go on YouTube and see snow. how is, this, going to help me in any way? So he's like, have some patience. I'm going to make you touch snow. So then we started driving to this place called Hatu Mata Temple. And about a kilometer or a kilometer and a half into the drive, we started running into almost a feet of snow. And he had a Zen car, and you know how Zen is. It's like a small car, and it can't like go on all this snow. He didn't even have chains on his tires or anything. So he said, "Sir, आपको तो snow देखना था. आप snow देख के आओ. अभी हो गया. अभी हम we let's go back to Shimla." So both me and my wife, we went into the snow. We like, threw snowballs at each other, made snow angels, and had all the fun. I don't know what clicked, but I told my wife Dipti, "Yeah, we have enjoyed this far. Why don't we, just walk a little further and see what happens?" I was in no shape. As I said, I was 110 kilos. I didn't even know how to dress for snow. So I was wearing a t-shirt and a jeans and I was wearing chappals. But we said, let's just go ahead. We started walking. We walked for an hour, two, 3, 4 hours later, we had done an 8 kilometer trek, a snow trek. We had never trekked in our life. But here we had finished the snow trek. We were standing on top of a place called the Hatu Mata Temple. And since you asked me how did this all start, my life changed in that moment. It was so quiet and so peaceful on the top that I could actually hear my every single heartbeat. Like, dup, dup. For a second, I was so scared that I like literally turned around. I looked at my wife and I'm like, "Can you hear my heartbeat?" And she's like, "What the heck are you talking about?" I'm like, "Okay, okay." And it was so amazing on the top. I mean, if I have to point out one thing, sometimes in life you are kind of either living in the future or planning for the future, or sometimes you're just pondering over mistakes of your past and kind of never existing in the present. But when I was on top of Hatumada temple, I was able to exist in that very microsecond of the moment. And I truly enjoyed it. I'm not going to say I fell in love with the mountains, but I fell in love with the state of the mind that I was able to achieve on top of that mountain or that day. And I promised myself I'm going to chase this state of mind probably for the rest of my life. And then I came down. I went on many treks after that. Year and a half later, I decided that I wanted to go to Everest Base Camp, and I signed up to walk to Everest Base Camp. And I remember once I finished the trip, we were stationed at a place called Pumori Base Camp. We were all gathered in our dining tent and chit chatting, eating food, having fun. And I remember the Sherpa guide outside started shouting my name. If in mountain someone's shouting your name, it's almost always never good. So I was like, what happened? So I quickly ran out. And the Sherpa guide said, "Sir, aap Everest ko dekho." And I turned around and I looked at Everest. The last rays of sunset were falling on Everest. Everest is a massive range, okay? Massive. It's like the tallest mountain in the world, but it's also dwarfed by a lot of other massive mountains around it. But every mountain was in the colors of gray and blue. Everest in middle was burning golden in color as if someone had lit all the snow on fire. And when I saw Everest that way, I fell in love. बॉलीवुड का डायलॉग है, पहली नजर में प्यार हो गया. And I frankly fell in love with Everest that moment. And it's like such a thing where you fall in love with a inanimate object like a piece of rock, but I fell in love there. And I promised myself this seems impossible for me right now, but I'm going to go on the journey. I'm going to come back one day, and mountain willing, I am going to stand on top of Everest. And that's where kind of in some sense my journey to the top of Everest began. I think it was just a calling so intense that I had to follow it. That there was nothing else in my life that made any sense other than going on this journey and climbing to the top. So that's kind of this was October of 2010 when I fell in love with Everest, and since then I have been on this journey.
Wow, Kuntal, so beautifully narrated and very, very inspiring that how from a trip that you went for and then you found your mission. And actually, this also brings a point that all of us, I think, get our callings at different times in life. It's, I think, the matter of listening to it and just following it, and you did it. And you've really inspired many people. And even now, I see a lot of comments are coming up. Almost everybody is getting inspired with the journey that you have had. All right, perfect. So now, Kuntal, we will open the Q&A for all the members, the all the beautiful folks that have joined us. So, guys, if you have any question right now for Kuntal, it could be about his journey, his fitness routines, his nutrition, anything that you feel will add a lot of value to you and the group. You can type that question on the chat box, and I will start to pick up one by one. I think we have already started to get. So let's go for the first one. RN is asking, how do you take care of your knees during the treks? Any tips on preventing joint aches and pains? So Kuntal, would you like to throw some light on it?
Absolutely. There are a couple of tips that I would like to give everyone, especially around knee and joint health. And this is a very right concern because as you start climbing mountains and as you kind of start training for mountaineering, you are repeatedly doing this, and there's a lot of tax on your knees and joints and everything. And so I would suggest two things. One is start working on resistance training, start doing strength training so that you are strengthening the muscles around most of the joints in your body. So it's not just the knee joint, right? Your body does not work in a silo where it's only knee working independently or your upper body working independently. Your body works as a unit. So work on strengthening from toe to head to toe. So that's something that first you need to focus on, but especially focus on muscles and strengthening muscles around your joints of the body. So that would be number one. And number two, kind of a tip that is very specific to knee, is that start using trekking poles. Like a lot of people kind of think, today when I go and climb mountains, or even if I do a short trek in the mountains near Mumbai, I will typically carry two trekking poles, and I will use these trekking poles exclusively on all the treks. And I know that a lot of youngsters come up to me and they ask me this question: Hey Kuntal, you have climbed Everest twice. Why do you need trekking poles? I want to climb Everest even when I am of age 80, even when I am of age 90. And if I can keep my knee joints, or if I can keep my entire body healthy, my joints healthy, then I will be able to do that even when I'm 80 or 90. And so a trekking pole, when you are trekking, when you are going up or when you are going down, trekking pole acts almost as your extra legs. They kind of take a lot of load off that your knee would be kind of taking on, and the lesser tax that your knees goes through over a longer period of time, the better for your body overall. So I would suggest work on your strength training, work on strengthening your entire body. It's not just about cardio, cardio, cardio. Yes, cardiovascular endurance is a very important piece of a mountaineering journey, but also focus on strength training, a balance of both, and then use trekking poles. It may seem like, hey, why should I use trekking poles? I'm just fine without the trekking poles. But use, and don't just use one. Actually use two trekking poles and learn how to use them well. Because sometimes I see people using trekking poles, but they never even use it on the mountain. They're just like, carrying it, or they're just, doing something with it. Trekking poles have to be used in a certain way. So start using them in that way. And believe me, it'll be a game changer for you. It was a game changer for me, at least.
Thanks, no, thanks, Kuntal, for throwing light on that. I think RN, that helps you in terms of understanding how can you take care of your knees. Let us go ahead for our next question. Kunjana is saying, "Hi Kuntal, thanks for giving us your time. What vegetarian diet would you suggest for us for being healthy?"
Uh, like, it's without understanding a lot more context about your current situation. I can't just like suggest a certain diet, but what I can say at a very high level is that ensure that you are eating a very well balanced diet. For example, let's say in case of a vegetarian or a vegan diet, I would say just ensure that you are eating ample of vegetables, ample of fruits, ample of whole grains, ample of nuts, seeds, so that you are essentially covering majority of macronutrients. So get enough carbs, get enough protein, get enough healthy fats. Ensure that you are eating food which is also micronutrient dense, so that you are getting all your vitamins and minerals. A lot of times, typically vegetarians and vegans, or these days even non-vegetarians, are deficient in vitamin B12 and vitamin D3, with pandemic, all of us are also enclosed in, our homes and not going out in the sun. So it's also important to understand and ensure that your B12 and D3 needs are being met either through your diet or either through supplementation on the side. So a very well balanced diet where you are eating nutritious foods most of the time, I think that would be a smart way to go, ensuring that you are also hitting your protein needs. Because as a nutrition and a fitness coach, these days when I look at most of people's diets, they are very good in carbs and they are very good in fats, but most of them typically tend to be slightly on the lower side of protein. So ensure that you are also getting enough protein in your diet. And yeah, I think that should be pretty much fine as long as it's a balanced diet and you are kind of not unnecessarily excluding any foods out of your diet. You should just be perfectly fine.
Great, Kuntal. So, actually, speaking of diet, I also wanted to ask you. In fact, this brings me also a lot of interest to this topic. You are a vegan, right? And there is a big notion all around that everybody says that being a vegan, you can't take up goals like, reaching Mount Everest. It's very difficult because vegan might not give you that much amount of protein, that much amount of strength might not come, and it might not help you. So, and you have done it twice, so you have proved everybody wrong. So, on that note, can you just let us know what has been your diet which has given you the amount of strength and stamina and a lot of other things, definitely along with the training? But what has been your diet which has helped you scale up to Mount Everest for twice?
So I'll tell you how kind of I tend to design my diet. Uh, I am when I'm climbing Mount Everest, I'm an endurance athlete in that context. Okay, so I have to first take my goals into context. And as an endurance athlete, I'm highly dependent on having enough carbohydrates in my diet. That doesn't mean that I don't need the other two macronutrients. So typically, what I'll do is I'll choose a lot of whole grains. So anything from millets to whole wheat to oats and all of these will be a big part of my diet. On the other hand, also starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes or potatoes and a lot of fruits, especially like banana. And again, all the fruits are just great. So I'll just mix and match with the fruits. And this kind of makes a big chunk of my diet. Then on the other hand, I will also ensure I'm getting enough protein in my diet. So I will ensure that I'm eating something like a tofu, probably on one of the meals in a day. Sometimes to just bring in some convenience in my life, I will also include a protein powder, a vegan protein powder, which is a mix of pea and rice in my diet. Again, protein, someone has also asked a question around protein supplements and what my view is on them. Protein powder or protein supplements are not any magical thing that you eat and you build muscle or you build fitness. That's not how it works. But they have a time and place. If you need some convenience in your life, go and include them. Nothing wrong with that. But if you can focus on eating whole foods and get your protein needs and all of your needs met from that, I think that is also perfect. So there's no right or wrong answer here. All of these items are just a tool in a big toolbox that you can use whenever you want to. So in terms of protein, I just ensure that I'm eating enough protein in the day according to my needs. I From the research I've read, about 1.6 to 1.8 grams of protein per kg of body weight. I am right now about 80 kilos. So approximately about 130 to 140 grams of protein a day is pretty much optimum for me as an endurance athlete. On some days, if I eat more, nothing wrong with that, or eat a little less, nothing wrong with that as well. And then just ensuring that I'm eating enough essential fats in my diet, because fats also control our hormonal system and they help with a lot of recovery and all of those things. So a good, well balanced diet. So essential fats, I'll say, my sources typically tend to be seeds and nuts primarily. And then even something like a tofu or a tempeh, which is again a soy based product. A lot of these also have some essential fats in them. And then I'll, just include some amount of oil in my diet. Look, I understand. I want to eat nutritious foods all the time, but I also want to give myself some space to have some convenience and to eat the foods that sometimes I enjoy, or eat the foods that I'm in a family setting. If I'm going out and eating with someone, I can't say I need oil free, I need sugar free, I need all this free, that free. I can't do that. So I can definitely say I want vegan food, but then I'm giving myself that flexibility. So I follow this 80-20 rule or 90-10 rule, where 80 or 90% of the times I'm eating nutritious whole foods, and then 10 to 20% I'm giving myself some kind of flexibility to eat whatever I want to. So that's typically how my diet is designed. And then I will ensure that I'm supplementing D3, I'm supplementing B12, and I get my blood work done every year, once every year, so that I know that I'm at an optimum level and performing at an optimum level. So this is the kind of way I design my diet. I look at, okay, I'm bodybuilding right now, then my diet is designed accordingly. If I am climbing Everest, my diet is designed accordingly. So that's how I will kind of set up my diet and design it. And as a vegan, a lot of people told me in the beginning that you need to eat meat, you need to eat eggs, you need to eat dairy. But as a someone who's in the world of nutrition and fitness, I kind of list when I heard it, I was like, I need to eat protein, I need to eat fats, I need to eat micronutrition. And the plant world or the vegetarian or the vegan world is filled with protein sources, filled with fat sources, filled with carbohydrate sources. So as long as you are being smart about your dietary choices, there's simply no way that your diet could be a hindrance in any of your fitness journey. I don't like if you're just eating, pav vada and pizza and pasta and pav bhaji and just eating a junk food diet, then your results are going to be that. But if you are being smart enough, eating a very very good diet most of the time while eating all those foods as well occasionally, so that you are enjoying your life as well and making something that is a sustainable life, I think that's the way to go.
I love the idea, Kuntal, that you said 80-20. I think that brings us to a gray zone, not being really too white and black, and allows us to be a lot more consistent with the practice. And I think that has helped you a lot. You have done some things very, very amazing, like, climbing Mount Everest. I think there's one more question now. Pooja is asking which mountaineering institute you trained at.
So I trained at a mountaineering institute called the Patagonia Mountain Training School. This was in Chile. Now there are 5 institutes in India that also train mountaineers or aspiring mountaineers. And but I wanted to see a different country. I wanted to experience a different culture, and I always had my eyes on this course in Chile, which was kind of said the toughest mountaineering course in the world. And so I thought, hey, why not go and do this course, see a new country and enjoy and have great fun. So I did my course, which was a combination of a basic mountaineering course and an advanced mountaineering course combined into one. It was a 42-day course where we had to cross the northern ice cap in Chile. There are 3 big ice caps in the world, which is Antarctica, the southern ice cap, and the northern ice cap. Northern ice cap is the one which is least visited and which is way more remote. So we were stationed on northern ice cap and we were going to cross the northern ice cap from one end to the next. And that was where our entire course was going to be run. We were 6 students with 2 instructors, and I had a great time, believe me. But it was also big learning for me that I want to take this moment and actually share that learning with everyone. I think I lasted about 20 days in that course. And I'm going to be very brutally honest here. I had totally overestimated my abilities and had totally underestimated the toughness of the course and toughness of the terrain and toughness of the mountains. And I lasted 20 days. And on the 20th day, that night, I remembered kind of thinking, going back in those first 19 days, आज मैं 5 बार मरने से बच गया, आज मैं 2 बार मरने से बच गया, आज मेरे बोन ब्रेक्स होने वाले थे, नहीं हुए, आज मैं गिर गया था crevasse के अंदर, but they rescued me. And I said that if I continue longer on this course, my luck will run out and I will potentially get seriously injured or die. And this is not where I want to be. I have learned a lesson. I went to my instructor and I told her exactly these words. I underestimated the course. I disrespected the mountain. I overestimated my abilities. And I think it's time to learn a lesson and go home, train harder, prepare harder, and come back the next time and do better. And something that I've learned over a period of many years is that we have to be brutally honest with our own preparation. And I think that will help us grow and become much stronger mountaineers. Because sometimes you can always say, अरे यार हो गया, ये तो पहाड़ चढ़ लिया मैंने, बट ये पहाड़ मैंने कैसे चढ़ा? आई थिंक वी ऑल्सो हैव टू फोकस ऑन हाउ वी डिड इट and how well we did it. And there's a lot to learn from every successful endeavor as well as every failure. So, but the important thing is to be very honest with yourself and your preparation. And I started being way more honest with myself since that time. And now I always am in the mindset of over prepare, over prepare, over prepare. Because on the mountain, your life is on the line. This is not about losing some money. This is potentially breaking your limbs or losing your life. You can't compromise there.
Wow, Kuntal, I think, and that's very important point also, that preparation. Right now we're talking about the Mount Everest, so you really spent great amount of time in preparation. But I think this holds true for any part of any challenge in the life. You prepare well. There's a quote, right? You train more, bleed less in the war. I think that's said very well, and you have proved it also. I think it's the preparation that you did that has helped you a lot to reach where you wanted to reach. So great. We have a next question, Kuntal, from Karthik, and very interesting. Even I'm very interested in the answer. What kind of conversation do you have with yourself in your head when preparing for the summit push? What do you talk to yourself?
Right. So I'll tell you how things went for us in Summit Push 2. So 2016, I told you the story how I felt on the top. 2019, I was at 27,300 feet. This is, by the way, the tallest campsite on planet Earth. There's no campsite that can be perched above this height. So we were in this campsite. It's called the Camp 3 on northern side of Everest. And it was about 6 in the evening. And Mingma Tenzi Sherpa, my Sherpa guide, and I were in the tent. And we knew that we were going to climb to the top. Now, we had also gotten a lot of messages that in the last 2 or 3 days, many people have died on the southern side of the mountain. And that had kind of started playing on my mind that this year the weather is very bad and people are dying on the mountain. And one of the conversations I was having with myself is, Kuntal, you have already reached the top of the Mount Everest in 2016. You have already proved to the world that it can be done by a vegan and that it is possible. And that this time you cannot put yourself under unnecessary pressure. So that was kind of one of the things that I was telling myself constantly, that if it happens, great. But if at any point during the journey I feel that I am, struggling or that I need to back off, then I am going to back off and come down because I truly value my life over everything else. I truly value my finger or my toes over everything else. The mountain will always be there. If I can stay alive, then I can always come back and climb that mountain the next time. Himalaya was born millions of years ago before we even started appearing on this planet. Himalaya is also going to be there millions of years after humanity disappears. The important thing is कि हम जिंदा रहे. So that was, something that I was constantly reminding myself through that night. And I think the biggest thing that I told myself is, man, I have prepared well. I have put in 10 years into my training. If anyone I have to back on this planet who would succeed, it is me, not someone else. I have to believe in myself. I have to back myself. It's not like I just showed up here one fine day, from the couch. It's a 10-year journey that has brought me here. So believe in yourself, believe in your training, believe in everything. And then it is just about one foot in front of another. So a lot of these conversations are kind of happening in my mind when I'm just about to kind of leave for Summit Push. But then the moment you get onto the Summit Push, when that like act starts, there's no thoughts in my mind. It's like blank mind with razor focus, one step in front of another. I am only existing in that microsecond of a moment. There's nothing कि मैं summit पे कभी पहुंचने वाला हूं, मैं यहाँ कभी पहुंचने वाला हूं, मैं वहां कभी पहुंचने वाला हूं. Nothing going on in my head. Where's the next step? Where's the next step? Where's the next step? That's pretty much, what is going on. And I remember 4 hours after I climbed through the night, we started at 9:30 that night. And I remember at 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the night, I saw my first dead body on the mountain. And the dead body was right in front of me और उसका हाथ टूटा हुआ था और उसका सारा बैक भी टूटा हुआ था, so the body was very highly disfigured, and it did shake me a bit because you're walking with so much focus, and then suddenly you look on the right and you see this, guy who was just like you, and then now he's dead and lying on the mountain potentially for 20, 25, 30 years. And then it kind of shook me, and I'm like, Mingma, let's just focus. Any mistake this point onwards, my body will be here. I will be some statistic in a newspaper or some milestone in someone's mind. अरे हाँ, वो बंदा था ना जो ग्रीन सूट पहन के वो वहां पड़ा है. I'll become that milestone. I don't want to become that milestone. I want to, stay alive, want to get to the top, get back out. So that is the kind of mindset I have. Yes, when I'm starting out, I will pep talk myself. I will kind of, pump myself. But once I'm on the mountain, it's just about execution. It's just about staying in the moment and being razor focused and being kind of constantly assessing how I'm feeling. Constantly. Like, am I feeling great? Are my fingers okay? Are my toes okay? Is my cardiovascular system functioning okay? And I think if you are trained well, you're just fine. So that's how I was feeling strong, very strong. The second time I made to the summit 5:30 in the morning, and it was so clinical in some sense that the moment we reached the summit, I didn't even have a tear in my eye. I just told Mingma, let's just take a picture and get the heck out of here. I have nothing to prove to anyone. I just wanted to do this because I wanted to do this in a certain style. I've done it. That's it. And let's now go out, get home, and that's when we'll enjoy. No time to enjoy here on the top. We need to get back down safely to the base camp with all my fingers and toes intact. That is the most important thing right now.
Very well said, Kuntal. In fact, this again, there's a great learning here. I think training well definitely gave you the kind of state of mind that really gave you that kind of stability even in the toughest time. Like when you're up there, definitely it's one of the toughest time that you can ever see because there are so many variables, and you still, went ahead and thought through it. It and I love the idea that you told, right? You can always come back. There is no harm in taking a back step and then again coming back. You always come back powerful. So that I really love that. Thanks for that. Pooja is asking, Kuntal, that how much time did it take for you to train for the entire journey?
So I started training seriously from October 2010. And I remember when I came back home, I distinctly, those words that my expedition leader, Tim Rippel, said, they were like playing in my mind. I had asked him the question, Tim, what's the secret behind climbing Everest? And he said one sentence, which was, Kuntal, to climb to the top of the world, you need a top of the world body and you need a top of the world mind. And I knew that I had neither, and that I had to start training and build that top of the world body and mind. And so I started my journey in October of 2010. And I think it took me about 4 years before I was actually ready to make my first attempt on Mount Everest. And I'm going to quickly break down the journey. The journey was separated into two aspects, one being the physical fitness aspect and one being the mental fitness aspect. uh, I personally started tackling the physical fitness aspect first because it is slightly or relatively easier out of the two. It is not easy. Okay, and if anyone tells you physical fitness is easy, it's not easy. uh, I've been doing it for 12 years and it's still hard for me. Okay, so relatively out of both, physical fitness was easy because it also had a blueprint. Like if I did X, Y, and Z, then I could achieve physical fitness. So at least there was some sense of a blueprint. So I will tell you what my blueprint was. It was mainly focusing on two things. One being building superior cardiovascular endurance, and second being combining that with some strength and resistance training. While a lot of the strength and resistance training I did initially was body weight driven, now I work on a lot of weight, like including weights in my training, machines and cables and stuff like that. But believe me, you can build good amount of strength and resistance training based on your body weight, perfectly fine. But a lot of work on cardiovascular endurance. And especially as I was researching more about mountaineers, I noticed a pattern. As an engineer, I will always look for patterns in successful people. And one of the patterns that I looked for in successful mountaineers was that they all had a resting heart rate of around 38 or 40. So I'm like, this is great. If I can figure out and make my resting heart rate around 40, that should translate to mountain performance anyway. And a third piece that I included in my journey was also high intensity interval training, because it almost kind of seemed like a great way to lower my resting heart rate. So combination of these three things. And I remember in 2016 when I summited Everest for the first time, I was at Camp 3, and Camp 3 is at about 23,000 feet. At 23,000 feet, most people's resting heart rate will be about 95, 100, even 105. My resting heart rate was 56, and my resting heart rate
Wow.
at sea level was around 42 or 43 back in 2016 when I climbed Everest. And while I was still very heavy, like I was not 110 kilos, but I was still 84, 85 kilos, which is far more than my actual BMI. But in spite of that, my resting heart rate was that low. And even on the mountain, it translated to immense amounts of performance. So I still think physical fitness needs to be a big, solid foundation of any fitness oriented journey that you need to take. And on top of that, you need to build your mental fitness. Because imagine if I'm physically not fit and then I'm using my mental fitness to overcome the limitations of my body. Now you are at 28,500 feet where there's lack of oxygen, where your brain is not functioning more than 30, 40%. How are you going to exert willpower over a body that simply does not have that fitness? It's not possible. Now, if I have the physical fitness and have the mental fitness as well, then there could be times where my physical fitness is a slightly lower, or it's not, firing great. And then my body can say, you can, my mind can say, you can do it, you should do it, you will do it, and your body will follow eventually. So, but like going onto the mountain without your physical fitness is like, shooting yourself in the foot. Not a smart strategy. So, good combination of physical and mental fitness both kind of, takes you on top of the world.
Perfect. Great idea of working with the physical and mental. And I've heard you also saying this in a couple of other videos as well. Like, if you want to reach the top, you got to have the top body and the top mind, which you definitely did. And I'm really, really surprised that you managed to keep your resting heart rate at 54 at 23,000. That's quite an achievement with the training perspective itself. Great. Let's go ahead for the next question now. Anand is asking, so how much time does it take for for a person from going from the Everest base camp to the summit itself? What would be that timeline?
So walking to the base camp is about 10 days. And then once you reach the base camp, you have to let your bodies acclimatize to various altitudes on the mountain. So you can't just climb Everest in one shot. It's like you can't reach the base camp and climb to the summit the next day. If I take any one of you from the audience and put you on top of Everest right now, you will die within 5 minutes. Practically, there'll be no oxygen available to any of your organs. They will start shutting down. You'll have a massive cardiac arrest. That's it, you will die. So you have to slowly adjust to the various altitudes on the mountain, and that process takes almost about 30 days or so. So let's say if I reach the base camp around 12th or 13th April, uh, then I will have to spend time almost until May 5th, letting my body adjust to the mountain. At that point, I am ready to climb to the top of Everest. The only problem is that you also need to wait for the right weather window on the mountain. And typically, a right weather window almost comes mid of May. And the Sherpa guides also have to open the mountain in the sense that they have to find a route and fix the route with ropes till the very top. And all of that is kind of, happens by mid May. And then potentially around 19th, 20, 21st May is historically what has been the best dates for summiting Mount Everest. You will get to the top and then you come back down and you get back to finally Kathmandu by about May 29th or May 30th. So it almost always takes about 50, 55, 60 days to climb to the top of Everest, like the entire expedition itself. And as I said, it's divided into multiple stages. So it's a pretty long drawn process.
Wow, 45 to 50 days, and I'm sure you got to have a lot of patience in this entire time, raise a sharp focus, and that's what keeps you going. Awesome. Perfect. Let's go to our next question. Alpana is asking, And it's an interesting question also. How do you replicate the moment you felt of being in the present while you were in the mountains in your daily life? Like when you are in the mountains, you explained the kind of feeling you had. You were even able to hear your heartbeat. How have you been able to feel that kind of moment in your daily life?
While I would like to give a very dramatic answer here, I am just going to share the truth. No, I haven't felt like that in my daily life, which is why I also go back to the mountains all the time to feel like that. But that does not mean that I have to feel like that in my daily life all the time. I wish I could, but I think I also have to be realistic that that is not a realistic expectation to have to feel the same all the time. And so one of the things I also focus on is falling in love with the process itself. Yes, the destination is important. Great. Feeling on top of the world is amazing. But I think the journey that I take to the top of the world is also amazing. And over the period of years, I started falling in love with that journey. I started falling in love with showing up every single day, putting in the time, putting in the effort, showing up for every workout, showing up for every meal, showing up every single day. Even if I was feeling like shit, I still showed up every single day. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'm feeling like shit, I'm still going to go and, work out like crazy. No, I did what I could. I did the best I could within the circumstances, knowing that I'm going to get back on track tomorrow or day after or the day after, but having that goal always in mind and falling in love with process. Because sometimes you can get too focused on progress or too focused on getting to the top, and in that you can kind of lose all the enjoyment of the actual journey that is really going on. So I think it has to be a good balance between the journey itself, enjoying the journey itself, and getting on top of Everest. I mean, getting on top of Everest is important, don't get me wrong. If I didn't get on top of Everest, none of you guys would be here listening to me in first place. That's not why I climbed Everest for. It was the biggest dream of my life. That's why I got to the top of Everest. But as I said, there has to be a balance between both the things, the journey and the destination. If you can focus more on the journey, it will really be fruitful, because there may be a chance that you may not reach the destination and you may actually have to course correct and choose a different destination as well. And that will kind of keep you on track, not like you start waking up one morning and thinking, oh, I can't climb Everest. This is it. It's end of the world. No, it's not end of the world. You can always change your dream, always pursue a different dream and keep going on. I mean, when I was standing on top of Everest, like, I said the story of 20 minutes. Did any changes happen in me in those 20 minutes? Did any character transformation happen to me in those 20 minutes? No, nothing happened actually in those 20 minutes. Heck, as every single day passes by, I even forget those 20 minutes sometimes, I feel. But what I remember is how I changed myself in that journey of 10 years. If I meet that Kuntal from 2009, I would not even be friends with that Kuntal. That's how transformed I am today. And all of that transformation happened during the journey, not on the top. So that's all I can share from my personal experience. It will be different for each one of you, uh, but that's potentially what I've learned from my own journey.
Nice, Kuntal. Thanks. And there's a beautiful understanding here that journey is equally important than the goal. Don't be just focused on the goal. And if you are focused on the journey, you will be able to find yourself in the present moment. So beautiful learning there. Usha is asking how to increase stamina as I do trekking but get tired in few minutes. What would be a tip?
I am again going to share from my personal experience. Look, I will say that everything that I share here is personal experience and anecdotal evidence from myself. You each have to apply it in your own journeys. When I did my first trek, this was, of course, after the trek that I did in Shimla. The one that I did in Shimla was not a deliberate trek. But when I came back home and I fell in love with the mountains, I wanted to do more treks. So I chose a very short trek called Rajmachi, which is near Mumbai. It's considered a beginner trek. And I did that trek. And I still remember when I reached the top, one of my teammates had to do a Thai massage for me for almost half an hour because I had massive cramps in my quads, massive cramps in my quads, to a point where I couldn't even walk. They literally had to, like, दो जन को लिटरली मुझे कंधे पे ऐसे करके थोड़ा चला के नीचे लेके जाना पड़ा था. इतनी बुरी हालत हो गई थी मेरी फर्स्ट ट्रैक में. Today, if I go on that trek again, I will probably finish the trek in half an hour without even feeling it in my quads. What I'm getting to at here is you have just started. You have just started trekking. You have just started building your stamina. Be patient, be consistent. Given enough time, as you do more and more and more and more treks, you will build fitness. 1 year down the line, 4 years down the line, 10 years down the line, when you look back upon this first trek, oh, in few minutes I was tired. And then in a year, you will be tired in few hours. In a couple of years, you'll be tired in few days. In maybe a decade, it will take an Everest to tire you out. So all I can ask you is be consistent, show up, train, and just be patient. There's no magic pill here. There's no magic supplement here. There's nothing magic here. It's just hard work and consistency. That's what's going to kind of, help you build stamina, help you build muscle, help you lose fat, help you go on any journey that you want to. There's no magic pill.
That's nice, Kuntal. So, Usha, I hope this answered your question. You just keep doing it and you'll get better at it every time you do it. So, let's go to our next question. Anupa is asking what prep do you need to acclimatize for high altitude treks? Apart from the training that we have spoken about, is there anything else that needs to be done for just acclimatizing to the high altitudes, or the training is enough?
I think training should be good enough. In addition to training, I would say doing a few high altitude treks would help just to understand how your body works at higher altitudes. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do. Because imagine if you have just trained, but never gone at high altitude, your bodies, you'll never know how you work at higher altitudes. I have seen people land in Ladakh, like land at Leh airport, and then get altitude sickness the day one itself. But that altitude sickness over a period of next 2 3 days will improve and you will get better. But if you are not able to cope up with that day one, where you are feeling really lightheaded, where you are feeling headaches, and where you are feeling nauseous, and you are then going to give up and go home, then that's it. Your journey has ended. But if you are able to get through those few days and then as you acclimatize, go and continue on with your journey, then it kind of just becomes better. So yes, train hard, but also do a few treks so that you can experience high altitude. And I think one very crucial point about high altitude is cold. So you need to also start working with understanding how you are going to deal with cold. So I do think the way you deal with cold is three things. You need to eat enough food so that you can stay warm. You need to wear appropriate clothing so that you can insulate your body heat, trap your body heat better. And third, you need to also train in cold. Just as you need to train at altitude, you need to train in cold, and you will just get better at it. The more you do, I still remember same thing that I said in my last answer. I remember doing my first 21,000 feet mountain back in July of 2011, and I was miserable on that first trip. And when I repeated the same trip 7 8 years later, where I was leading a team of 12 people to the top, I was literally running up the mountain. What was the difference between the 2011 Kuntal and the 2018 Kuntal? Nothing. Just time passed by. This Kuntal was more consistent, trained harder, built experience, built mental fitness. He was just a much better, stronger mountaineer. As simple as that. So I think even in your case, as you train, build experience, and just keep getting better and better as years pass by, you will suddenly realize you are so much stronger and better. So I think this is really important to set your expectations that if this is just your first trek, don't expect to do wonders in the first trek. But as you become better, you will become a better version of yourself. And one thing that I can also share, sorry, I'm just now digressing a lot, but one thing that I can share is compare yourself to only your previous versions. When you go on a trek, don't compare yourself to, अरे ये तो कितना fast चल रहा है, oh this guy is so fast, oh they are just racing up the mountain, maybe I should also race up the mountain. No, as long as you are better than your previous version on a different trek, that's all that matters, to be very frank.
That's very powerful, Kuntal, what you just now said. Compare yourself with only yourself. I think in the Everest journey, or even we are all from fitness journey, we all have our fitness routines. And many times I think we always, start to compare with somebody else. But your advice is like a golden advice here, that just compare ourselves, from the last day. Are we better today? And that I think serves the purpose and gives us everything that we are looking for. Kuntal, we spoke about the mental aspect, right? And Karthik has a question about it. So, how did you train for the mental aspect? As you mentioned, there's good amount of understanding and knowledge about physical. Like, we have good amount of understanding when it comes to physical training. You definitely need a coach and a guide, but still there is a bit of an understanding. Okay, this would be needed for the physical. How did you train for the mental aspect? What was your blueprint for mental aspect?
Now, since you brought up the word blueprint, there's no blueprint for mental aspect. Every individual is going to have their own specific custom journey, because our mind is the most unique thing of our entire body, right? Muscles, you do progressive overload, they will grow. Cardio endurance, you do something, your endurance will grow. But your mind, it's just different for everyone, it grows in different ways for everyone. So we have to have our own journeys. For me, it was multifaceted journey. So I'm going to kind of focus on one portion of the journey. It was around fears. I had an extreme fear of heights, and this goes back to a accident that I had while rock climbing back in eighth or ninth standard in my school, where I'd gone into a kids camp and I was rappelling down a mountain. I made a misstep and I turned upside down, and I was free falling down to my death, until one of the instructors below saw that was happening, and he locked me from below. And just few feet above the ground, I stopped. Otherwise, I would have just smashed into the ground my head and I would have died. I When he locked, unfortunately I banged into the mountain badly, and I injured my lower back really really badly. uh, while the lower back recovered in time, uh, I think there was still a lot of mental trauma that kind of stayed with me over a period of many years, where I had just extreme fear of heights. I just could not cope up with heights. And then suddenly in 2010, I decided that I wanted to climb Everest. So here's a guy who has extreme fear of heights but wants to climb to the tallest mountain of the world. And I think that was the first big mental challenge, or the mental fitness bit, that I had to start building upon. Now, the way I did it is I confronted my fears head on, and I signed up for a trip where I had to do or learn a lot of rock climbing. And I remember we were climbing this 200 feet pinnacle at about 19,000 feet near Everest. And we had climbed to the top. Now, rock climbing was not a big problem for me, but coming down was a big problem for me. So I remember when I was coming down, or when I was going to start coming down, I asked my instructor, is there any way else to go down where I can trek down instead of rappelling down? He said, this is a 90-degree cliff. How can you walk down this? There's no other way. You have to rappel down. He didn't know about my past trauma, or he didn't know about my past history. So I, kind of set up my system, and I slowly kind of started going down. And when I took my first 2, 3 steps, my mind was filled with chaos. My mind was filled with all those images of me falling down and dying. And in that moment, I actually started fumbling, and I was almost close to making the same mistake again. And I'm going to give a heads up that I'm going to swear right now. But I remember my expedition leader Tim shouting from the top, Kuntal, if you take another step like this, you are going to fucking die. He shouted at the top of his voice from the top, and it shook me completely. I was I was terrified. But when that words kind of, came into my ears, for that one moment, I just kind of, all that chaos, all that panic in my mind, it just stopped and it gave way to this calm. I was able to stay calm. I was able to listen to his instructions, go down that 200 feet cliff and get out safe and sound. And after that, I realized that the way to overcome my fears is just to put myself in that situation over and over again, figure out how I can deal with that fear and come out of that. And so after that, I put myself in that situation every chance possible. And yes, even today, when I'm rappelling, the first 5, 10 seconds are all panic, all chaos. I'm not saying I have overcome my fear, but I can manage my fear a lot better today. After those 10 seconds, there's this time where it is all calm, where it is all relaxed. And at that time, I can make my decisions really well. I can make all rational decisions. So when I'm in that situation, I just let that first 10 seconds, 15 seconds just go by. I know it's going to be panic. I know it's going to be chaos. And if I make any decisions during that time, it's going to hamper me or probably it's going to put me at risk. So I don't make any decisions. I wait for that calm to arrive, make my decisions, get out. That's what I did. And when I started doing that, that made my mental fitness so much tougher, because suddenly now when I'm in the mountains, people look at me and people think, man, he's so comfortable in the mountains. But I know internally I'm not comfortable in the mountains. It's just that over a period of time, I've put in this hard work that I am at this level in the mountains. So again, I can just share from my journey. But overcoming your fears, I think, is a big part of how you can build that mental stamina and build that, mental fitness.
Very well said, Kuntal. And I think the learning here is in any situation, I think in any tough situation, if you give that just 10 to 15 seconds, panic is going to be there. But if you can just build that as a process of giving that 10 to 15 seconds, you will find your way out. And that's, I think, a beautiful learning here. So we are almost, we have in fact already passed our 60 minutes, but let's just take last one question from Saurabh. During 50 to 60 days, what about food, water, and how do you get fresh while climbing 5 to 10 days on the mountain?
So with food and water, typically our base camps are very well stocked base camps, because the base camps have access to helicopters and base camps have access to porters. So a lot of food, fresh fruit and vegetables and everything is kind of available at the base camp. Base camps also have proper what I would call gas and everything. So base camp is not a problem. I think once we start climbing beyond the base camp is where the challenges start. And what we typically end up doing is we'll carry dry foods which are kind of lower in weight and they are compact to carry. So I will typically end up carrying a lot of dates, a lot of dried figs, a lot of raisins, a lot of nuts, a lot of protein bars, a lot of energy bars. So I will carry a lot of these things. I will also end up carrying a few snacks that I really love, and these are all very unhealthy snacks. I would never eat them when I am at home. So for example, my favorite snack is Oreo cookies. My favorite snack is also Haldiram bhujia. So you guys must be wondering, but look, on the mountain this is okay. It's not like I'm eating this all the time, right? The 80-20 rule. I'm 80% of the times not eating this, but when I'm on the mountains I'll eat this. And energy is energy, calories are calories, no matter where they come from at the end of the day. uh, and what we'll do is we'll also carry these dehydrated food packets. So on Everest, the second time I had carried these boxes of poha that are dehydrated. You just put hot water in them, and they reconstitute and they become proper poha. I really enjoy eating poha, and I thought if I have that on Everest, I will really eat it. So that was something I carry, and then I'll also carry these again food packets that are like pasta or spaghetti or something that you can put water in it and they can reconstitute itself and like become proper. So it's again a mixture of a lot of dry fruits, a lot of nuts, some snacks, some protein and energy bars combined with these some hot foods that I can actually eat. But we cannot make hot foods on the mountain because there's really no running water on the mountain. So you always have to boil snow, convert it into water, and then you can use hot water to prepare anything you want. I will also carry electrolytes, so something like an electral or an enerzal or whatever electrolyte powder that is available, or potentially sometimes I will also carry energy gels. I remember on Everest I had carried energy gels in 2016 where I made a mistake where I kept the gels outside on my day pack. And by the time I reached an area called the balcony, which is at about 27,500 feet, the gels had frozen solid. So yeah, all I was carrying was additional weight in my backpack. That was just like same as bricks, like carrying bricks in your backpack unnecessarily. So that was just a mistake. But otherwise, what we'll end up doing is we'll have massive jackets that we'll be wearing, and the jackets have inner pockets. So I will typically end up storing all my food in the inner pockets because the inner pocket is closer to my body, which generates a lot of heat, and the heat is getting trapped by the jacket, so the jacket will stay warm, and everything that is on the inner side of the jacket will also stay warm, and consequently will be consumable and eatable. So that's kind of how I will deal with the food portion. I didn't understand the other part of the question, but did this person mean how we shit or pee on the mountain? Um if that is
Maybe. I'm also not 100% sure, but how do you get freshen up, I think?
right. So I think peeing is easy, right? You just go and pee anywhere. At least for males it is easy. For females potentially it's slightly harder, so that's an additional challenge for females where they have to kind of train for that piece. uh, Shitting is of course a bit of a challenge on the mountain. Let's say you are at camp 3 on Everest on the south side. The camp is on a 50-degree wall where we cut a small ledge on it. Now when you have to go shit, you still have to we make like a small snow enclosure, and we actually literally fix ropes to the point you have to wear your crampons, which is the spikes on your boots. You actually have to wear your harness. You actually have to put yourself into the rope, attach yourself to the rope, and go all the way to the shit point, after which you can actually remove all of that and shit, reattach yourself to the rope and come back down. It's that tricky to even just shit on the mountain. And I have heard of stories where people have actually gone peeing and they forgot to wear their crampons and they actually fell off the mountain and died. And I've heard horror stories of a lot of these things happening. So it's a challenge, but a lot of people don't prepare for this challenge. So my personal kind of when people reach out to me saying, hey, how can I climb Everest, I also kind of tell them that train for these things. Like, train for how you are going to pee on the mountain, train for how you are if you are on a rope, right? You are attached to three other people. How are you going to pee there? How are you going to shit there? Right? If a nature's call comes, it comes. You can't do anything about it. You can't hold it, right? Or you can't shit yourself. Those are not options. So you have to learn how to do those things. And people may be thinking this is so gross or this is so funny, but sometimes it's your life and death. So it's smarter if you train in these situations and probably train on the smaller mountains, right? Go and climb a 5,000-meter mountain, a 6,000-meter mountain, a 7,000-meter mountain. Learn where the risk is less and bulletproof your skills. And then when you go to an 8,000-meter mountain where the risk is much higher, at least you know how to tackle that actually, and you have experience doing those things. So that's kind of what my 2 cents are about this issue.
Thanks, Kuntal. Thanks for sharing your knowledge on this as well. So, I think we are very close to now ending this session. So, let me quickly just maybe summarize the session. So, guys, if you have been looking for, going for either Mount Everest or mountaineering, or a lot of insights that has come from Kuntal is not just about this, also health and fitness. So, I think the one major learning that we have here from him is train really, really hard, and that will prepare you for everything that is going to be whichever Mount Everest you are. So for Kuntal, it was actual the Mount Everest, and I think when we said the title "Find Your Everest," I think it's mostly about finding your Everest. It doesn't have to be the Everest, but it could be your Everest, the challenge that you are facing in your life, and wherever you want to reach, right? So just take a lot of these learnings that Kuntal has shared, train hard for whatever, wherever, whichever journey it is, eat well, and continue to do it. I think that is also one of the learnings. When you keep doing things, you become better at it over a period of time. And the same thing, what was difficult maybe just a few months back, will become a lot easier eventually. So, Kuntal, actually, this brings us towards the end of this session now. And I would request you to share the top three experiences or the top three takeaways from your experience in the entire couple of years that you have had. You have done a lot of training, mountaineering. We all have our Everest that we all want to climb. You know, all of us, all the members that are logged in here. I am, and then a lot of other people also. What would be your top three takeaways from your learning, which we can use, follow in our daily life, and achieve our Everest?
So I think the first learning is find your Everest. So as you rightly pointed out, it has to be your own personal Everest. So find your Everest, because in my case, when I found my Everest, it gave me the focus and drive to go on a journey to relentlessly pursue it. If there's no Everest in your life, what are you going to pursue? So I think it's important to have that Everest, that overarching Everest that kind of gives you that focus and that passion to go on this journey. So that is number one. Number two is, of course, hard work and consistency. Uh, in hard work, I would also say it would be smarter to do some smart work as well. So combination of hard and smart work. So potentially, something that you pointed out, getting a coach. Not a coach will help you not repeat mistakes. A coach will probably make your journey a lot more efficient, a lot more pointed, a lot more like focused. So though, like, do some smart work combined with hard work. Hard work is there, you have to do it, but if that hard work is done in the right direction, from which you can recover and consistently keep repeating that hard work, that's going to pay a lot of dividend as you go forward. So it's consistency, hard work, and smart work. I think these kind of the second learning. And then I think finally I would say that don't give up. When I went to climb Everest in 2014, 17 Sherpas died. My expedition was cancelled. I had to turn around, come home. I stayed focused, stayed positive, went back the next year, 2015, attempted to climb again. Unfortunately, the largest earthquake to hit Nepal in a century happened. It induced a massive avalanche that hit the Everest base camp. 21 people died, 100 people injured, 10,000 killed across Nepal. I survived a near death experience. My expedition was cancelled again. I had to come back home. 2 years in the running, I could not climb Everest. I could have easily given up and said, done, it's not meant for me. A lot of people also told me that stop this madness, don't go back again. But it was my dream. It was my baby. If I gave up, regrets for rest of the life would only be mine, no one else's at the end of the day. Mera dream tha, mera baby tha. I did not give up. I went back in 2016 and I got to the top. Something that I've learned from my journey repeatedly is that if you have put in the effort, if there is intent, if you have done everything, when you are closer to giving up, that's also the closest you are actually to the top. So just a little bit more. Don't give up. At the very end, summit is just around the corner. Don't give up. Try a little bit harder. Believe me, you will get to the top. But if you don't make it to the top, still not end of the world, right? You are alive. You can always try again, or you can always find another dream and try harder, right? So yes, you have a dream, but also understand that as long as you are alive, you can have more dreams, you can go on more journeys. So I think you have to keep all of that in mind.
Thanks so much, Kuntal. Thanks so much. So, all the members who are logged in here, here's the blueprint to find our Everest. First, find out the Everest. Where exactly do you want to reach your goal? And then, as Kuntal rightly mentioned, it's not just about hard work. So, hard work plus smart work plus consistency. Keep all the three things going on. And at the end, as he mentioned, he's a very, very good example of not giving up. Experiencing a death experience, almost near death experience, and after that also continuing is something that all of us can learn here. And not giving up again will take us closer to our goals. So thanks so much, Kuntal, for this wonderful conversation. As I told you, I'm even now excited. I think if we continue to talk, we can go for hours and we will not be short of the topics, but we are out of time now. But it was a wonderful conversation, Kuntal, with you. Thank you so much for taking our time for our cult family, for us to share your journey. It was really, really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, and really had a great time with all you amazing folks. And thanks, Naveen, again for hosting me, and a very kind introduction and summarizing the whole journey. Really appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Kuntal. And thank you so much, all of you who have joined, all the cult members. It really means a lot again to take out time and spending on these things which actually can take you ahead. All right, so this was quite a good conversation with all of you. Thank you so much, Kuntal, once again. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you again in another AMA very soon. Until then, this is Naveen signing off. Namaste.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.